Before we dive in, drop a quick hi in the comments. It may seem small, but trust me, it really helps YouTube share this story with more sci-fi fans like us. I'd love to see who's watching.
Oryx Nexus was built to prove that war was no longer necessary. At its center, an artificial star burned with flawless precision, casting a golden light that never shifted, never dimmed. Around it, the megastructure unfolded in rings of impossible scale, continental platforms curving through orbit like polished stone halos. Cities clung to the interior walls, stacked in vertical habitats, their lights moving in ordered constellations. Transit lines threaded through them like living veins. Above and below, oceans floated in gravity-controlled basins, turning slowly as if time itself had learned to breathe. No weapons, no fleets orbited it, no fortifications. Just design, just harmony. Oryx Nexus did not defend itself like a fortress. It took pride in needing no army at all. The human vessel docked cleanly against one of the outer rings and was swallowed into the station with the efficient quiet of a place that processed greatness daily. No sirens, no escorts, no armed reception, just light marble-like stone and soft harmonic tones carrying through open-air concourses. Dr. Sebastian Ward paused at the top of the entry ramp and let his breath catch. Not in fear, in awe. No hollow projection prepared a person for scale like this. Oryx Nexus did not overwhelm with mass the way warships did. It overwhelmed with order. Everything moved because it had been designed to move that way. Every angle of reflected light had been calculated centuries ago by minds that no longer existed. "Daddy," Mara whispered. He looked down at her, small hand wrapped tightly in his. Her eyes were reflecting the artificial sun as if it were real. "They built a star," she said, "like it was just another tool." Dr. Sebastian Ward gave a quiet huff of breath he might, years ago, have mistaken for a laugh. "Some species don't like waiting for the universe," he said. "They prefer to edit it." The main concourse opened into the grand arrival hall, a cathedral of science and ceremony. Delegates from across, liquid-bodied intellects moving inside transparent containment spheres. Towering quadrupeds with burnished armor skin polished to ceremonial shine. Short, densely muscled creatures that walked in trios, whispering into bone-thin transmitters locked into their skull ridges. There was music, though no single species could have named its instruments. Localized gravity wells allowed species of wildly different physical needs to mingle without disadvantage. Warm air here, cryo-cooled fog 50 meters away. Patches of vacuum and pressure fields near the ceiling where balloon-like lifeforms drifted in slow, luminous spirals. And everywhere, banners, not flags, data tapestries, flowing glyphs composed of changing equations and historical achievements. Entire scientific dynasties scrolled above the delegates' heads in living script. Mara turned in a slow circle. Dr. Sebastian Ward followed her gaze. He had lived among men long enough to recognize postures born from ambition and fear. He had studied non-human psychology long enough to see their equivalents. This place had neither. It had comfort, confidence. A million minds gathered in one place without shields. "They think this place is permanent," he said softly. Two alien attendants approached. Tall, slender beings of silvered skin with faceted eyes, arranged in symmetrical lines across elongated faces. They bowed with practiced precision. "Dr. Sebastian Ward," one intoned, his voice layered slightly out of phase with itself. "Human origin, primary research domain, applied energy systems, and theoretical acceleration fields. You are requested at the Grand Hall of Minds." "And my daughter?" Dr. Sebastian Ward asked. The attendant's pupils adjusted minutely as its internal translators processed a construct without direct equivalent. "Your offspring is listed as..." Celebrated. Mara blinked. Dr. Sebastian Ward inclined his head. We'll go together. They walked. The Grand Hall of Minds was chaos tamed into artistry. Thousands of seats curved around a sunken platform like the inner rings of a shell, each section privately climate-controlled for different species, yet open to sight and sound. Above them, layered displays shimmered like transparent clouds, equations dissolving into diagrams, models folding into simulations. At the center of it all stood a device that did not belong to any one species, a gravity lattice. It was a column of empty air held rigid by magnetic and gravitic anchors. Within it, particles hovered impossibly still, frozen mid-fall. A demonstration platform. An alien scientist stood before it, a towering figure whose skin resembled layered slate. His voice rolled through the hall like controlled thunder. Not the generation of gravity, the being was saying, but its denial. Mara's eyes lit. Dr. Sebastian Ward's brow furrowed slightly. The alien extended a multi-jointed arm and pressed a control interface. The air inside the lattice collapsed inward, not violently, elegantly. A sphere of null gravity formed, perfectly round, perfectly black, absorbing the light around it like a swallowed thought. Within it, matter ceased to exist as mass. A stone dropped into the field did not fall. It unraveled, not in fire, not in sound, just gone. A murmur rolled through the hall. The alien demonstrated structural collapse, containment inversion, directed gravitational cancellation. The technology was beautiful. It was also catastrophic, Sebastian thought. Not because of what it did, but because of what it made trivial. Dr. Sebastian Ward leaned in, eyes narrowing. He didn't understand the alien's methods, but he understood the implications. The manipulation wasn't precise, not yet. The field fluctuated microscopically. He saw it because humans were not born into gravity manipulation. They were born into compensating for it. That faint instability would shred hulls under acceleration. It would destabilize fleet formations. It would punch through shielding that relied on mass reactive dispersion. The alien ended the demonstration. The hall erupted into applause. Mara leaned closer to her father. "Daddy," she whispered. "Yes?" "This place is so beautiful. Thanks for bringing me." Dr. Sebastian Ward smiled. His daughter, brilliant at just 8 years old, loved exploring cultures and civilizations more than any playground or toy. She wasn't like most children her age. "The pleasure is mine," he said. At that moment, the light changed, not dimmed, shifted. The brightness dropped a fraction. The tone underneath the ambiance shifted half a pitch. Subconsciously, thousands of minds paused. The doors sealed. Gravity stiffened. Force fields snapped into existence between the rows with surgical speed. Weapons unfolded out of walls that had never been weapons before. The applause died in one breath. Then bodies hit the floor. Chaos did not arrive screaming. It arrived organized. Armed figures poured from concealed recesses, military units masquerading as attendants, and moved with drilled precision into the trapped zones. Hands were restrained. Necks were immobile. Force cuffs locked. Delegates fell in seas of stunned flesh. Dr. Sebastian Ward did not wait to understand. Understanding was a luxury. He grabbed Mara and ran. The emergency exits flashed on the periphery, mapped already in his memory. Protocol demanded that human delegates learn potential exit routes on foreign installations. In case diplomacy failed, survival would depend on knowing where the walls ended. He cut sideways, not toward the obvious routes, toward service corridors. The hall screamed behind them as gravitational suppressors slammed down. They hit the first maintenance tunnel at a sprint. The ceiling lowered. The air cooled. Mara stumbled and he lifted her without breaking stride. They burst through a diplomatic wing, scattering robed figures and robotic aids that did not yet understand they had been turned into scenery for a massacre. Shots cracked past. Stun webs tore across pillars. Dr. Sebastian Ward cut across a transit hub just as mag rails roared to life. Passenger barges slamming into emergency protocols and disgorging crowds into panic streams. He used the chaos. Vertical lift shafts yawned open like chasms of light. He dove into one with Mara clutched to his chest. Gravity rotated. He hit the wall running. Maintenance ducts opened into organic corridors where the Nexus pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Alien architecture grown, not built. Pursuit echoed behind them. Boots, non-human claws, chitin scraping metal. They burst into the hangar with lungs on fire. The ship was waiting, ramp already lowering. And Sigmund Taylor, his pilot, was already moving. He didn't ask. He didn't hesitate. Mara passed from arms to arms without a word. Then the world broke. The shot struck Dr. Sebastian Ward square in the back, his body twisted, head slamming the deck as consciousness fled. Mara screamed, "Daddy!" The ramp was already rising. The doors sealed. The ship lifted. Sebastian lay sprawled on cold plating, motionless, while his daughter fled into the stars. Sigmund Taylor did not panic. He secured the child in a crash seat, activated the safety restraints, and turned back to the controls. Locked trajectory. Ignited burn. Linked emergency broadcast. The ship shook. Orex Nexus had begun tracking him. "This is Lieutenant Taylor, HSS Cormorant. If you're receiving this, do not send anyone else. We are under coordinated hostile action. Orex Nexus Command Authority compromised. They're after us. Orex Nexus is armed. Repeat, Orex Nexus is armed. They fired on us while we were retreating. Delegates eliminated or captured. Dr. Sebastian Ward, casualty confirmed. Shot in the back by station defense systems. Child on board. We're..." The hull screamed under pressure. He rerouted sensors. Initiated FTL prep. Behind him, Mara stared, wide-eyed, silent, gripping the seat. Then the beam struck. A single lance of energy cut the ship in half. The broadcast ended in white. Earth received Sigmund's Taylor message in silence, a security frequency only known and used by humans. Then came a soft ping. A second message appeared. An external faction, the Verac Syndicate, assaulted the Orex Nexus Convention. All key minds feared lost. We extend condolences and assure the galaxy that corrective action is underway. The announcement was perfect, prepared, polished. A tragedy with the edges sanded off. Commander Lionel Jeffrey shut the feed off himself. He stood in the silence that followed, then spoke. "Prepare HSS Terminator." Dr. Sebastian Ward woke to a ceiling that did not settle. It flexed, not visibly, but the way a horizon flexed when you stared too long at it. Light filtered through it, as if the room itself were breathing. The air tasted thin and sweet at the same time. He tested his hands. They answered him slowly, like tools pulled from cold water. Pain found him next. It was not the raw fire he expected. It was a flattened, disciplined ache, pressed thin and even across his back. Alien medicine did not erase sensation. It redistributed it. He turned his head. The room complied seconds later. A field of translucent instruments hovered along the wall. Needle filaments folded neatly like sleeping insects, lenses rotating to look at him without pretending otherwise. Soft diagnostics laced the air in sensations too subtle to be sound. He inhaled, and his chest did not catch. Memory returned as a splintering image, hangar lights tearing into streaks, the engine howl becoming something alive, the weight of Mara ripped from his arms. He sat up in one motion and swore when the world slid sideways. Not dead, he thought. They kept me alive. The door opened. 2 figures entered, not guards, but attendants, with jointed limbs and mineral-textured skin, drifting in faint gravity harnesses. They moved like people carrying water through a crowded room, precise and unremarkable. One spoke in a voice that carried no inflection beyond courtesy. "You are conscious earlier than predicted. Your wound is stable." "Where is my daughter?" Dr. Sebastian Ward asked. The speaker's eyes, to call them eyes felt imprecise, adjusted focus. "You were separated during medical evacuation. Separated. Not lost. Not dead. Just unrecovered." He let that word stand by itself and built a future around it. "How long?" he asked. "Time allocation is not precise," the attendant said. "There was internal disturbance." "Internal. Not external." His jaw tightened. "You will be transported shortly," the attendant continued. "Your presence is required elsewhere." "Why?" Dr. Sebastian Ward asked. The being considered him as though selecting a word from a drawer labeled human. "You remain useful." They did not bother with restraints. They did not need any. The corridor outside the medical chamber breathed animal light. Organic ribs arched overhead, glowing faintly with internal bioluminescence. The floor under his feet flexed to match his stride. He followed the attendants in silence, counting steps, memorizing turns, looking not at beauty, but at geometry. They passed alcoves where other wounded lay suspended in fields of soft blue, scientists cocooned in healing webs, alien bodies at peace inside not quite familiar anatomies. No blood, no urgency. They arrived at a laboratory. Sterile benches sprawled across the chamber in geometric arrays, each hosting interfaces built by different species for the same unspoken reason. Dr. Sebastian Ward recognized equipment. Human vapor-cooled processors nested awkwardly beside alien apparatus that pulsed like muscle. Scientists looked up when he entered, not with relief, with tally. He picked a face and anchored on it, not for emotion, but to confirm reality. They are alive, which meant the lie would be complicated. A figure in a neutral harness gestured him toward an open station and delivered the offer with an accent that made it sound merciful. "Cooperate with the work. Participate. In time, release may be authorized." Authorized, not promised. Dr. Sebastian Ward adjusted the chair, sat, did not argue. "Then I'll need data," he said calmly. "Real data." They gave him curated truth. Clean inputs with edges sanded off. It took him less than 10 seconds to spot the seams. He began to work, and as he did, he cataloged everything that wasn't in the files. Door lag, power cycling, shift rotations that never aligned with the station's artificial night, medical traffic patterns that did not obey the architecture. Time stretched. He solved what he could, ignored what would implicate him too early, rearranged equations into something that could survive being handed to a handler without becoming a confession. All the while, his mind walked corridors, mapped ducts, learned shapes from air currents. He did not ask about Mara again. She was out there. The ship had lifted. That truth was enough to kneel on. The HSS Terminator did not enter Oryx Nexus's system. It replaced a piece of it. Traffic lanes recalculated around mass that had no business being there. Sensor suites across 3 continents spiked in controlled alarm as the dreadnought's signature registered like a continent that had just decided to move. Oryx Nexus attempted to welcome it. Diplomatic algorithms lit. Ceremonial hierarchies booted. Every greeting it had ever learned poured itself into one arrival vector. Commander Lionel Jeffrey let it all wash past. He came down the docking arm with no entourage worth the word. His uniform was clean, his boots dull with use. The men beside him, helms and aides, wore the same quiet competence as a blade set flat on a table. A welcoming committee arrayed itself into what it believed humans required. Jeffrey shook no hands. "Logs," he said mildly. "Incident. Today. All defense activity." Politeness stiffened. "There are formalities." "Logs," he repeated. They produced data. Faultlessly. Too quickly. The kind of efficiency that implies rehearsal. He read without expression. Outside, his ship commanded authority into the void. Traffic controllers noticed delays that had not existed before. Departure windows became suggestions. Docking approvals waited for a green light from nowhere. Oryx Nexus, for the first time in its history, existed inside a system that could say no. Jeffrey toured hallways while his hosts spoke of sorrow. He watched instead. Watched how eyes moved, how guards positioned their weight, how elevators took a fraction of a second longer to open when he was inside them, how certain doors were always in use and never in motion. He walked through medical wings that smelled of antiseptic and something older. He was accompanied by 2 junior medical attendants struggling with a cart, their movements marked by clumsiness. Jeffrey didn't look at them long enough for them to matter. From time to time, he asked questions that took no effort to answer, and recorded the effort the aliens expended to avoid them. An external faction. Unknown motives. A sudden strike. Everything already in a prepared order. A tragedy, Jeffrey said when prompted. "Yes," his escort breathed, relieved. "And tidy," he added quietly. They did not hear him. Jeffrey requested internal camera access. Delayed. Requested defense sequencing logs. Sanitized. Asked for personnel routing records at the time of the incident. Fragmented. He thanked them anyway and asked for more. During the exchange, Oryx Nexus announced a routine safety update. No one paused to consider the coincidence. No one noticed that ships already in motion were being recalibrated into holding patterns that would not release them. Inside a hidden maintenance channel, 2 cartwheels shivered as they crossed a magnetic seam that existed only in emergency architecture. A junior attendant glanced at a panel no one else would ever see and committed its pattern to memory with the unromantic care of a man who had been trained to love details. Another adjusted a sleeve and marked the timing of a door cycle with a breath. Neither spoke. The work lived elsewhere. Jeffrey concluded his meeting with gratitude that did not quite land. "You'll send your official conclusions," he said. "We have already done so," came the prepared reply. "Good," Jeffrey answered. "I'll read them." Oryx Nexus mistook the word read for something passive. He boarded the HSS Terminator with a folder full of lies and a station full of truths he hadn't yet asked for. The comms officer met him at the operations deck. "Marines are debriefed," he said. "No suspicion during exfil. They blended in cleanly with the medical delegation. We've got a solid catalog of ingress and egress routes, hidden infrastructure, emergency corridors, even restricted service lines." "Good," Jeffrey said. He stepped to the viewport where Oryx Nexus floated like a polished jewel, flawless on the outside, rotting underneath. He sat and watched a city pretend to be innocent with the confidence of something that had never been tested. At the same time, inside a lab where he was a prisoner, Dr. Sebastian Ward logged a minor discrepancy in an equation and recalculated a variable nobody but a human would question. He paused. Listened, and for half a second thought he heard engines where engines could not exist. The scientist's hands were still trembling when the field stabilized around the device. Dr. Sebastian Ward watched the shimmering halo settle over the demonstration table as if someone had placed a star inside a glass of water. Gravity folded, then vanished. Tools near the edge tilted, confused by a force that was not supposed to disappear. "It holds," the scientist whispered. He was an older man, skin dusted with silver, eyes glass bright from sleepless triumph. For a moment, One fragile, human moment. Relief softened the edges of his face. He had created something extraordinary, something impossible, something no species should ever own. The lab exhaled. Someone laughed out of sheer disbelief. Even the alien attendants shifted posture in what might have been admiration. Dr. Sebastian Ward felt something almost like hope rise in the room. Then the doors opened. 4 security personnel stepped inside. They did not shout. They did not warn. They did not draw weapons. They simply walked, quietly, toward the scientists. The older man turned, still smiling faintly. "I can run a field cycle," he offered. "I just need—" The guard behind him placed a hand at the base of his skull. A soft pop. Barely a sound. Like pressure leaving a bottle. The man's body dropped, quietly and completely. And that was it. No ceremony. No questions. No hesitation. He was dead. The device was taken without a word. The body was lifted and removed as if it were unwanted packaging. The door closed. Silence calcified into something sharp. Someone finally whispered, "They kill you when you're done." Dr. Sebastian Ward stared at the place where the man had fallen, then at the empty space where his work had been. His heartbeat did not change. His breathing did not stutter. He simply understood. Cooperation was not survival. Completion was execution. This place was not a lab. It was an extermination camp. His chest tightened once, not from fear, but from recalculation. Mara. She got out. She has to be out. He forced that truth into place like a splint and began planning. Not sabotage, not yet. But friction, delay, misdirection. Variables that would only break under pressure. He typed calmly. Answered questions smoothly, adjusted equations no one but a human would think to check. And all the while, he studied the walls as if they were a code. Inside the HSS Terminator, Commander Lionel Jeffrey watched the third transmission fade to nothing. He had reached out to 3 different species, each of whom had lost scientists at Oryx Nexus. 3 replies received, 3 losses acknowledged. 3 statements identical in every angle. They all blamed the Verax Syndicate. The choice of scapegoat was almost elegant. A pirate confederation known for raiding convoys, abducting scientists, stealing prototypes, violent, messy, hated, and conveniently incapable of subtlety. It was the perfect lie, because it was believable. Unfortunately for Oryx Nexus, humans were not easily fooled. Jeffrey folded his arms. "Again," he said. The aide replayed the Verax accusation from the second species. Same pacing, same keywords, same political grief. Manufactured grief. "This is coordinated," Jeffrey said quietly. "The aliens you contacted seem convinced." His aide replied. "Of course they are. They were expected to be." He closed his eyes for a moment. Humans had learned long ago that when everyone believed the same lie, the lie was not designed for individuals. It was designed for institutions. Jeffrey shifted gears. "Any updates?" "Microbeacon still active," came the answer. "Dr. Sebastian Ward's signal is stable. Low-power emissions consistent with post-trauma recovery. 1 alive. 2 gone. No bodies, no funerals. Just dead signals in a cold log." "All right," Jeffrey said. "Open a diplomatic line to the Galactic Council." His aide hesitated. "What pretext, sir? They've already ruled the incident external." "That's fine," Jeffrey replied. "We're not disputing it." The message he composed was succinct, formal, and absolutely unassailable. Humanity hereby requests authorization to perform its sacred memorial rites in proximity to the location where its citizen died. These rites are non-political, non-military, and strictly religious, in nature. In accordance with Article 12 of Intercultural Ritual Mandates, Council members of theological governance must permit observance. Half the council governed under religious law. Half the council would rather walk naked into a star than publicly deny funeral rites. The message went out. 12 minutes later, the reply came. Approval granted. Mandatory cooperation instructed. Oryx Nexus obliged to host the ceremony. Jeffrey closed the channel. No victory expression. No satisfaction. Just a quiet, sharpened focus. "They'll expect clergy," his aide said. "They'll receive them." "And us?" "We will be mourners," Jeffrey replied. "Very respectful ones." He stood. "We go in. We observe. We confirm his location. And the Marines, sir?" "They were just medical staff last time. Invisible. Harmless," Jeffrey said. "Next time they'll be mourners, like us." He turned toward the viewport where Oryx Nexus glowed like a polished lie. "Prepare our delegation. We have a funeral to attend." Oryx Nexus fell quiet in a way only civilizations do when they realize they are being watched. The grand ceremonial atrium, normally a cathedral of science, had been stripped of its instruments and banners. Equations were dark, displays dormant. The architecture itself had been dimmed to a deep, respectful twilight, as if the megastructure were trying to learn the language of mourning by imitation. Human funeral colors were not native to the station. Black cloth did not drape naturally along alien railings designed for antennae, wings, or appendages that had no cultural concept of sorrow. Earth fabric hung stiff and foreign against walls grown to resonate instead of absorb. But Oryx Nexus had complied. The Council had ordered it. Because religion, unlike fleet doctrine, did not negotiate. Because belief did not bend. Commander Lionel Jeffrey entered not as a soldier, not as a diplomat, not as a threat. He entered as a mourner. A long cloak of matte black fell from his shoulders, concealing rank, concealing weaponry, concealing history. Behind him came the rest of the clergy, robed figures moving with measured pace, hands bound within ceremonial sleeves. Among them, 2 Marines walked as mourners. To the Council, they were human priests. To Oryx Nexus, they were tolerated superstition. The ritual space centered around the open air where the human ship had burned, a place deliberately left untouched. Fractured plating still marked the edges. Scorching spiderwebbed upward along walls once polished smooth. The galaxy had attempted to erase the shape of the crime. Humans did not erase their dead. Jeffrey knelt before a shallow bowl of gray earth brought from homeworld soil, one of the few things humanity carried to every frontier without fail. He dipped his fingers in it. The dirt stained his skin, not symbolically, physically. That mattered. He rose and spoke, not loudly, not theatrically. The words were not for Oryx Nexus. They were not for the Council. They were not for the grieving species gathered behind glass observation panels. They were for the dead. For the ones who had burned too fast to leave bodies. He did not accuse. He did not threaten. Instead, he spoke of names becoming weight, of silence as inheritance, of memory as the only weapon time never dulled. The alien religious delegates shifted uncomfortably. They did not understand the language, but they had been taught to recognize gravity. As the final chant began, low, rhythmic, barely more than breath, the robed figures behind Jeffrey moved, not as a wave, as omission. 2 detached from the geometry of the ceremony and did not return. No one counted. No one ever did. First Sergeant Lucas Brandt slipped away after the last chant. He moved with the weight of a man who had learned how to arrive without startling the world. Sergeant Tomas Velez flowed beside him, quieter still. Their robes were heavy on function. Inside the cloth rested tools that did not care about sanctity. The first door they encountered did not open. Brant placed his gauntleted palm against it and broke the locking mechanism with an impact that flared the metal inward like wet paper. He caught the falling slab before it struck the floor and lowered it soundlessly. Velez passed through first. 2 defense technicians stood with backs turned. One fell before he could finish turning. The other reached for something that might have been an alarm. Velez shut the attempt down with the edge of his hand and sank the blade in, clean beneath the ribs. No sound left either body. They continued. The corridors beneath Oryx Nexus did not resemble their marble upper levels. Service arteries bled into utility chambers. Massive valves, built for something inhuman, hissed heat. Gravity faltered inconsistently, where engineering had been forced to bend around alien necessity. Brant moved like mass itself. Velez like absence. The third contact happened in a stairwell with no soft solutions. A guard stepped into the stairwell mid-patrol and froze. Brant did not. He slammed the man into the wall with bone-shaking force, finishing the impact with an elbow that cracked skull against alloy. Another guard appeared behind them and fired blindly. Velez took the shot across his shoulder, tore the weapon from the man's hands, and used it to break his jaw before driving it into the base of his throat. Blood sprayed the wall in black arcs under dim lighting. They did not stop. Brant sealed the stairwell behind them. 2 minutes, he muttered. Not prayer, math. Dr. Sebastian Ward was adjusting constraints on a calculation when the lab door imploded inward. 3 security personnel died before they completed raising their weapons. He did not move, not in shock, in recognition. First Sergeant Brant was impossible to mistake. He stood in the doorway like a fact. Velez cleared the room behind him with his weapon already speaking into darkness. Dr. Sebastian Ward, Brant said. It wasn't a question. Ward grabbed his jacket. No explanation. No briefing. He moved because the man in front of him was moving. They retraced a different route than the one they came in by, which was how Ward knew they had not gambled. They bled through tight corridors, where the walls sweated condensation and the air vibrated with something too low to hear. They split once to bypass a security grid spooled with electricity, regrouped a floor below, where gravity twisted sideways and equilibrium lied. Twice they had to fight. Once, Brant took a shot to the ribs and did not react as if anything had occurred. Once Velez killed a guard so quietly, Ward did not realize the man had existed until he was already gone. They emerged into the ceremonial sector through a thermal duct that reeked of burned lubricant and antiseptic. Brant tore open a ceiling panel and dropped. Ward followed without thought. The atrium was still full. The lament had reached its longest vowel. Human grief, low and unending, rolled against alien stone as if trying to wear it down through sound alone. Velez wrapped the black mourning stole around Ward's shoulders, pulled the hood gently low. Brant pressed him into the geometric shadow of the crowd. 3 men became one silhouette. They moved as mourners moved. Slow, heavy, empty. Oryx Nexus did not notice another human among the grieving. It did not count. It had never learned how. The HSS Terminator swallowed them into steel and silence, like a lung taking its first breath after deep water. Ward did not speak. He did not collapse. He merely stood in the doorway while Marines peeled their disguises away and became something else entirely. Someone pressed a warm cloth into his hands. Someone pushed relief into his veins. Someone else turned away. One by one, the others followed. The room emptied without instruction. No orders. No ceremony. Just understanding. Commander Lionel Jeffrey just entered. Ward took a step forward, then another. Jeffrey did not move to meet him. He waited. Ward lifted his eyes and asked the only question his mouth had not allowed itself to form for days. "Where is Mara?" Commander Lionel Jeffrey had given orders that doomed ships. He'd watched good people vanish in fire. But this was harder. How do you tell a father that his 8-year-old daughter is dead? That her name will never again be spoken in the present tense? Dr. Sebastian Ward sat across from him, not restrained, not panicked, just still. His face looked older, not with age, but with something rubbed down to the grain. Jeffrey opened his mouth, but Ward spoke first. "Where is Mara?" Jeffrey didn't answer right away, not because he didn't know what to say, because he understood that this moment would divide the man's life cleanly in two, before this sentence and after it. "She didn't make it," Jeffrey said quietly. "The ship was destroyed in atmosphere. Mara and Lieutenant Taylor both died in the blast." The words landed with a dull, physical weight. Sebastian's face did not change at first. The mind did what it always did. It tried to argue with physics. Sebastian started, then stopped. "No. The ramp closed. She was clear. The ship lifted. I saw it lift." "Yes," Jeffrey said. "They fired." Sebastian's breath twisted on the word. "They fired on a fleeing ship. He didn't finish. Color drained from his face as if someone had pulled it out through his feet. His hands loosened, then tightened on empty air, fingers clawing for something that was no longer there. He missed the chair the first time he tried to sit back down. The second time he found it. He didn't scream. He didn't rage. The sound that left his chest was far worse than either. It was the sound of something that had believed, collapsing under the weight of proof that belief had been a mistake. His shoulders folded inward. His head dropped. And then the sobs started. They didn't come out as loud, clean bursts. They came out strangled, air cutting around them like his lungs were rejecting their own betrayal. Jeffrey didn't move. He didn't reach across the table. He didn't offer words. There was nothing useful to say, and he had never been one for noise when no order could be given. He simply stayed and listened. To a father grieving a child he'd lost twice, once in a hangar, once in his head. Minutes passed without either of them measuring them. When Sebastian's breath finally broke into ragged, empty gasps, Jeffrey tapped a control on the table. The door opened with a soft hiss. A ship's medic stepped in, eyes already low, hands steady. "Sedation," Jeffrey said. "Light. He needs rest, not erasure." Sebastian didn't resist when they placed the IV line in his arm. He stared somewhere that wasn't the room, the ship, or the universe. "I should have gone with her," he whispered. Jeffrey heard it, because it was exactly what every man in his position said, no matter the battle, no matter the war. "Sleep now, Dr. Ward," he said. The medication entered his bloodstream and began to work. The sobbing stopped, not because the grief faded, because his body no longer had the strength to carry it. The medic guided him gently to his feet and toward the door. Sebastian didn't look back. The door closed. The room suddenly felt larger and more useless. The intercom chime was soft. "Commander," his comms officer said, "the 3 delegations are on the line. Collective holographic session. They're waiting." "Patch them through to Conference 2, Jeffrey answered. "Audio and holo local only. No recording on their end." "Understood." Jeffrey took one slow breath, then another, then walked out. Conference 2 was a circular chamber with holoprojectors set into the floor, calibrated to match alien heights and physiologies. Today, all 3 stations were active, casting wavering columns of light that solidified into emissaries. 3 different species, 3 different homeworlds, all tied together by one thing: the scientists they'd sent to Orex Nexus and never saw again. Their forms flickered into clarity, translucent but recognizable. One looked like a column of articulated crystal segments with a halo of motes around its head. One was a tall, avian-framed figure with 4 arms folded in rigid tension. The third projected as a mass of slow-moving bioluminescent tendrils contained within a spherical field. They had all received the same official explanation: the Verax Syndicate, external attack, tragedy. Jeffrey stepped into the circle where they could all see him. "Thank you for coming," he said. "We came," the crystalline one replied, its voice resonant and cold, "because your request was marked, urgent, existential, and verified. That combination is not customary for diplomatic theater." "Good," Jeffrey said. "This won't be theater." The avian figure clicked its beak softly. "You claim to have different information than the Council," it said. "You claim we were lied to." "I don't claim," Jeffrey replied. "I can show you." There was a pause. "And why?" the luminescent being asked calmly. "Should we trust you, human commander, when all Galactica recognizes the Council's report?" "Because," Jeffrey said, "you didn't send your people to the Council. You sent them to Oryx Nexus. And Oryx Nexus fired on a human ship carrying a child and a pilot who were already leaving." Jeffrey gestured to his comms officer. "Play the broadcast," he said. A brief pause. Then the lights dimmed. In the center of the circular chamber, a projection bloomed into life. Grainy, sharp-edged, unmistakably human. The final moments of Lieutenant Sigmund Taylor, the pilot, the one who tried to run. He looked directly into the camera, face lit by the red light of internal alarms. "This is Lieutenant Taylor, HSS Cormorant. If you're receiving this, do not send anyone else. We are under coordinated hostile action. Oryx Nexus Command Authority compromised. They're after us. Oryx Nexus is armed. Repeat, Oryx Nexus is armed. They fired on us while we were retreating. Delegates eliminated or captured. Dr. Sebastian Ward. Casualty confirmed. Shot in the back by station defense systems. Child on board. We're..." The footage shattered into static. Silence followed. Only the hum of the hollow projectors remained. Jeffrey stepped into the circle again. That message reached us seconds before Lieutenant Taylor was killed. So was the child he was trying to save. Mara Ward, 8 years old. None of the emissaries moved, but the change was there. Subtle shifts. Postures tightened. The bioluminescent being dimmed. The avian's wings pressed in. Even the motes around the crystalline envoy stilled in suspended orbit. Dr. Sebastian Ward, the girl's father, and one of the abducted scientists, was just rescued from a hidden facility beneath Oryx Nexus. He's currently under sedation. The grief nearly broke him. He let the silence settle again. "You asked for evidence. There it is. A dying pilot's last words, a father's confirmation. He worked beside your scientists. He knows they're still alive, at least some of them. Others weren't so lucky. Some were executed the moment their work became useful." The avian envoy shifted, feathers flaring with discomfort. "They knew a child was aboard a fleeing vessel and still fired." "Yes," Jeffrey said flatly. "They did." The luminescent envoy's light contracted again. "We were told the station had no military capability." "You were told a lot of things," Jeffrey replied. "None of them were true." "There are microbeacons in all human delegates," Jeffrey said. "Low-power implants. Yours may differ, but your people would have carried equivalents. Track your own. You'll find their signals still anchored inside Nexus infrastructure." The avian envoy's head snapped to one side, as if consulting an unseen aide. "Our signal technicians reported anomalous pings matching our missing scientists' life signatures," it said slowly. "Within the station. Not en route. Not out-system." The crystal emissary's motes began to whirl in agitation. Ours as well. The luminous being's field flared brighter. That is unacceptable. "Welcome to the conclusion we reached," Jeffrey said. The avian envoy narrowed its eyes. "What do you propose?" it asked. "Simple," Jeffrey replied. "We go get them, and we make sure Oryx Nexus never does this again." "You seek war," the crystal emissary said. "No," Jeffrey said. "War began the moment our people were taken. We're just finally responding." The luminescent being pulsed. "And you want us," it said, "to follow your command?" "You want your scientists back," Jeffrey said calmly. "You want the place that did this unable to repeat it. You want the council to understand that neutral doesn't mean untouchable when it hides a slaughterhouse." He let that hang for a breath. "You have fleets. So do we. You have cause. So do we. What you don't have is someone who's already walked their corridors, studied their defenses, and pissed off the right people." The crystal envoy's mote slowed again. "You intend to lead," it said. "Yes. And what," the avian asked, "prevents you from using us as expendable cover for human revenge?" "You're asking the wrong question," Jeffrey said. "The question isn't whether I'm dangerous. It's whether I'm more dangerous to them than to you. Right now, that answer is yes. I'd prefer to keep it that way." The luminescent envoy laughed, or produced a sound that approximated it, a rolling, shifting ripple of tones. "Blunt," it said, "efficient. I see why your species is feared in the fringe sectors." "Feared," Jeffrey said, "but not yet respected." He looked at each projection in turn. "You asked for proof. You have it. You asked for certainty. Your own trackers confirm it. Now I'm asking you a question. Do you intend to do anything about the fact your brightest minds are chained to a world that calls itself holy?" The three emissaries did not consult openly. They changed posture. Slightly. "Enough." The crystal envoy was first. "If we commit," it said, "we commit fully. There will be no half measures." "Good," Jeffrey replied. "Half measures are how we arrived here." The avian envoy straightened, feathers flaring in ritual pattern. "Our fleets will answer your coordination," it said. "We will not initiate fire without your signal." The luminescent envoy dimmed, then brightened again, like a muscle clenching. "We will join your assault," it said. "We will retrieve our people, and we will remember who broke the lie." "Then we have an understanding," Jeffrey said. The holofield seemed to lean closer. "What will you do first, human commander?" the avian asked. Jeffrey's answer was simple. "We move," he said, "before Oryx Nexus decides its secrets are worth killing again for." They were ready in under 24 hours. The armada did not assemble with fanfare. There were no speeches broadcast across public channels, no grand declarations sent to the council. Ships slipped into formation like pieces of a remembered machine, taking their assigned vectors with military inevitability. Human vessels took the front. Not because they were the largest, because they were the ones everyone had quietly agreed should be seen first. The HSS Terminator sat at the heart of the formation, mass like a dark star, firing solutions already cycling in background processors. Around it swam angular cruisers, escort frigates, and long, lean destroyers whose only purpose was to take hits that would have killed something more valuable. On the flanks, the three allied species brought their own war forms. Crystal-latticed ships that angled light into weaponry. Avian-designed carriers with fighter swarms docked in folded wings. Organic, pulsing cores that moved like living organisms wrapped in armor, their hulls slowly shifting in ways human sensors did not entirely understand. No one argued about command. When Jeffrey's orders came, they moved. "Maintain approach vector," he told navigation. "Minimal broadcast. No threats. No declarations. His tactical officer frowned slightly. Go in quiet? After all this? We already declared ourselves, Jeffrey said, when we left orbit. The fleet moved through the void like a blade sliding into a sheath that had forgotten it once held weapons. Halfway to Oryx Nexus, the lie was finally exposed. The first contact was a sensor anomaly. Nothing dramatic, nothing obvious. Just a quiet distortion in local space. Small, quickly compensated for, easy to ignore. No one on HSS Terminator ignored anything. Reading localized gravitic variants, the sensor chief said. Not natural. Source? Jeffrey asked. Forward, 30 degrees off main vector, masked behind station broadcast residue. Expand profile. The board painted the distortion, extrapolated it, unfolded the math around it like skin peeled back from bone. Contacts resolved. 1, 3, 9. More. Multiple emergent signatures, the chief said. Cross-section matches, capital vessels. No registry. No council transponders. Oryx Nexus bloomed ahead in the dark, its false serenity backlit now by movement. Jeffrey watched new icons appear on the tactical plot. Ships rising from behind the station's shadow. Formations sliding into an intercept net. A defense fleet that wasn't supposed to exist. At a world that wasn't supposed to need one. Oryx Nexus, Jeffrey said quietly, was very sure there would never be a war. The tactical officer glanced at him. Sir? They built it anyway, Jeffrey said, just in case. The comms officer turned from his station. Multiple challenge signals inbound from the Nexus fleet. They're addressing us as aggressors, demanding we withdraw. Jeffrey studied the board for a heartbeat, then nodded once. Transmit to the Allied ships, he said. Command channel. Open. This is Commander Lionel Jeffrey of the HSS Terminator, he said, voice calm and even. Enemy fleet has revealed itself. You are to engage under human fire control coordination. No independent charges. No unilateral retreats. We advance together, or we do not advance at all. Acknowledged, came the layered reply. Different timbers. Different languages. Same intent. On the board, alien fleets tightened their formations around human vectors, like muscles coiling around a bone. Mark current range, Jeffrey said. Marked. Lock all weapons, he ordered. Prepare to engage on my mark. Human fire control did not believe in warnings. The moment Commander Lionel Jeffrey dropped his hand, the HSS Terminator spoke in mathematics instead of sound. Gravitic lances folded space into spears. Point defense batteries woke like insects in a storm. Rail cannons drove mass through vacuum, as if distance were a rumor the projectiles refused to believe. The enemy fleet answered with light. Oryx Nexus's non-military armada broke from its hidden geometry and surged forward, hulls glowing with charge and deflection fields. Aliens had designed elegance into their warships. Humans designed endings. Vector shift, 30 degrees forward /, Jeffrey ordered. Bring us through their node, not around it. Human vessels did not fan out. They punched a hole. Alien beam arrays lanced into the void and burned 2 human destroyers to drifting silhouettes in the first exchange. Jeffrey watched the icons fade without comment. Hold formation. The Allied fleets hesitated. It wasn't fear. It was unfamiliarity. They were used to maneuver warfare, elegant spreads, long harassment arcs. Humans advanced like a closing fist. Follow our burn, Jeffrey transmitted. They did. And then the storm became real. Rail slugs smashed into enemy carriers with the force of falling cities. Defensive shields collapsed not in bright displays, but with sudden emptiness-creating failure. A crystalline cruiser shattered into prismatic debris under focused fire and left nothing intact enough to call a wreck. The varicolored sky of alien warfare became a human problem, and humans solved problems. enemy vessels attempted to flank, Jeffrey cut the channel in half and sent frigates straight through a missile screen with orders to not evade. They lost one ship. They gained a corridor into the enemy's heart. In 10 minutes, what had been a proud intercept fleet became a debris field of dying shapes and emergency beacons, screaming into nothing. "Enemy retreating toward Oryx Nexus," Tactical reported. "Let them," Jeffrey said. The planet city ahead was no longer pretending. It was loading weapons, and the humans, finally, were done being patient. Jeffrey did not wait for orbit to become safe. He never had. "Deploy second team," he ordered. 7 Marines slid from shadow like consequences made flesh. Brandt led. Velez was beside him. This time they did not wear medical clothing. This time, Oryx Nexus understood what they were. They did not sneak. They cut their way in. Insertion pods punched into infrastructure arteries and cored their way through station skin like thunderbolts through bone. Emergency bulkheads slammed down too slowly. Automated defenses reacted too late. The Marines dropped into chaos like predators emerging from fire. Brandt drove forward with a shotgun in his hands and gravity as an accomplice. Velez slipped through spaces that had never considered needing locks. Fire teams cracked doors, broke lines, burned paths through internal security that had trained to restrain scientists, not fight soldiers. They did not pause. The prisoners were where Ward had said they would be. Alive, half-starved, still working. Extraction was not gentle, but it was complete. Scientists spilled into human docking bays like survivors from the inside of a storm. Some collapsed at the threshold. Some stared at human insignia and didn't believe they were finally free. The moment the last scientist was safe aboard, Jeffrey gave the order. "All ships," he said. "You are free to remove the problem." The sky lit up. The war had begun. 3 days later, Oryx Nexus burned in slow motion. Not in fire, in systems failure, in collapsing sectors, in artificial suns guttering as reactors died one by one. Alien allies fought with fury. Humans fought with coordination. Every attempt at evacuation was intercepted, not with cruelty, with inevitability. Enemy commanders abandoned ships and died in corridors that once displayed equations. Escape craft detonated in orbit. And then, the command center vanished. Not exploded. Deleted. A pressure wave rolled outward, collapsed shields inward, and wiped Oryx Nexus's brain from existence in a single, final operation. What remained, drifted. What remained, knew. You don't cross humanity and survive. The Galactic Council called. Once, then again. Jeffrey declined both. When they transmitted louder, he responded. "No negotiations with executioners," he said. The channel died. The galaxy learned its lesson in fragments. Dr. Sebastian Ward woke to quiet. A nurse sat nearby, not alien, not guarded by weapons, just human. "You're safe," she said. Safe. The word tasted wrong. Later, Jeffrey came. Ward listened to the details with a scientist's attention. Prisoners extracted, fleet destroyed, command center erased, council humiliated, alliance formed. Justice delivered. When Jeffrey finished, Ward spoke. "I don't want to go back." "To Oryx Nexus?" Jeffrey asked. "No," Ward said. "To science. To being useful that way." Jeffrey waited. "I spent my life building things to make the universe lighter," Ward continued. "And everything I built made it easier for someone else to kill a child." He shook his head. "I don't know where I'll go. I don't care. Some colony. Somewhere quiet. Some place that doesn't know my name." He swallowed. "I'm not asking permission. I'm telling you I'm done." Jeffrey nodded. "I don't blame you," he said. Ward did not break again. He was past breaking. He simply stood. and walked away from it all. Jeffrey remained in orbit long after Oryx's nexus stopped burning. He watched it without satisfaction. Wars taught men how to destroy. They did not teach them how to repair what mattered. Some losses did not leave debris. They left absences. Humanity had won. The galaxy had learned. And still, humanity can rebuild anything, except the place where a child should have been.
Hey there, space human. I'm really curious about your thoughts on this video. Drop a quick comment and let me know what's on your mind. Or just say hi if you prefer. Either way, I'd love to hear from you. Also, remember to check the pinned comment. Trust me, it's worth a look. Oh, and one last thing. I've chosen another video for you to watch. Just click the card here, or here if you want the whole playlist. See you there.